How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man. She describes Donald Trump as a sociopath who grew up in a dysfunctional family that fostered his greed and cruelty, which he is now inflicting on the world.
Hi, I'm Mary Trump. Yes, the other one of those. You might know my uncle is the authoritarian, convicted criminal conman currently wrecking the country from the safety of the Oval Office, but for the vast majority of my life, I've just known him as a f***ing loser. So, unlike most political commentators, I come at this with insider knowledge. I know exactly who Donald is, and I'm not afraid to say it, and I will never pull punches.
You've heard the polished speeches. You've seen the breaking news banners. But what if the Rail warning didn't come from a politician or a reporter? What if it came from someone who's known him since before the fame, before the chaos, before the mask? Meet Mary Trump. She's not just a former president's niece. She's a clinical psychologist. And she didn't just observe the dysfunction. She grew up inside it. This isn't some juicy political tell-all. It's a clinical red flag waving in broad daylight. Mary doesn't claim Trump fell into corruption. She says he was engineered, raised in an environment where cruelty wasn't just accepted. It was encouraged, rewarded.
Yeah, well, first of all, as a human being, Donald is as bad as he's always been. This is somebody who's never evolved. This is somebody who seems worse behaviorally simply because he's being given more opportunities to be worse. But in terms of his functioning on a cognitive level, absolutely there's been deterioration. I mean, Donald is somebody who has had severe psychiatric disorders for decades that have remained untreated, and any illness you have that you don't treat will worsen. And I think he's being pushed further and further because of Vice President Harris's success, because of his own failures, into a world that is more delusional. When he talks about how enthusiastic the crowd at the debate was, he's probably talking about himself. He was his audience for that debate in many, many ways.
Built into the blueprint. What we're seeing now is a fall from grace. It's the final stage of a design because that same unstable creation, that walking warning sign, is running again. Louder, older, and even more detached from reality. And if America decides to buckle in for another ride, Mary doesn't offer a plot twist. She offers a prognosis. The country won't make it to the end. Forget the skyscrapers, the red hats, the roaring crowds. Mary Trump strips it all down to the roots. A cold, joyless house in Queens where Donald wasn't raised. He was wired. His father, Fred Trump, didn't want sons. He wanted soldiers. Emotion was weakness. Affection was a trap. And love? That was just another tool to control. Donald didn't grow up learning empathy.
The only way Donald has changed, because he was always a bully, even when we were in the backyard playing baseball, I was 6 and he was 28 or however, I don't remember how much older he is than I am, but in his late 20s and I'm a little 6-year-old kid, he would still throw the ball as hard as he could at me. He did it once. I thought I broke every single bone in my hand. Because he has to win, he has to be better than, etc. So he's always been that guy.
He learned how to dominate. He wasn't taught collaboration. He was conditioned for conquest. According to Mary, he wasn't allowed to become a man. He was sculpted into a weapon. One purpose, one mission. Win at any cost, even if everything around him burns. And now he's back, not with a vision for the country, but with a vendetta. This isn't a campaign. It's therapy in the most dangerous, public, and destructive.
He never felt safe. He never felt loved. And I think if you start from that kind of deficit and you never find somebody to fill in the gaps or to heal you, then you are sort of at the mercy of anybody who may find you of use. Unfortunately, my grandfather is ultimately the person who did the most damage to Donald because he exploited Donald's weaknesses and he exploited the damage that had been done to him, because the defense mechanisms Donald had to utilize in order to protect himself from the loneliness and fear he experienced when his mother was absent from
him. A grown man reenacting the chaos of his childhood, but this time with 300 million people strapped into the fallout. Mary isn't speaking in hushed tones anymore. In 2025, she took the global stage, not as a bitter family member, but as a whistleblower wired into the Trump bloodline. And she didn't hold back. Her message was clear and chilling. Donald Trump isn't some misunderstood figure. He is exactly as dangerous as he appears. She described his mind like a haunted house, full of mirrors, no exits, no light, a place where shame can't live because he can't feel it, where loss isn't accepted. It's denied, erased, rewritten. When Trump says he'll never leave office again, he's not bluffing. He believes it. He means it. Mary paints a portrait of a man emotionally frozen in time, intellectually slipping and morally hollowed out. But what makes it worse? He's propped up by enablers too spineless to stop him. While Americans argue over gas prices and grocery bills, a walking authoritarian is being rebranded and reintroduced, ready to finish what he started, only this time, with fewer obstacles and more vengeance. Inside the Trump household, losing wasn't just frowned upon, it was punished. Mary Trump recalls even childhood games turning into battlegrounds. Donald didn't play to bond. He played to dominate. She remembers him throwing baseballs at her with the force of an adult, not out of fun, but to assert power. Compassion wasn't modeled. It was mocked. When Donald's older brother died, he didn't learn grief. He learned that kindness can kill. Every time Donald was hurt, ignored, or embarrassed, he made a vow. Next time, I'll be the one doing the hurting. That vow became the blueprint for his life. From failed casinos to legal scandals, every chapter reads like a revenge fantasy. Against critics, against opponents, against a world he believes owes him everything. And now, he's eyeing the White House again. Not to lead, to settle scores. This isn't a campaign. It's childhood trauma scaled up to a national crisis. According to Mary, Trump isn't mentally ill in the way people think. He's not just off. He's pathologically driven. Every trait of narcissistic personality disorder is present and untreated. And that's not a guess. It's a diagnosis from someone with both credentials and access. Mary calls him an emotional time bomb, addicted to validation, allergic to humility, hostile to reality. And when a narcissist sees a crowd drifting, they don't adapt. They explode. Trump's public meltdowns aren't accidents. They're messages. They're threats. Mary warns that if he gets another term, that rage won't just be aimed at Democrats or journalists. It'll tear through the institutions holding this country together. Because after his loss to Joe Biden, Trump wasn't planning to run again until two things changed. One, he keeps dodging accountability. And two, the Republican Party is busy rewriting the rules to help him win without winning. Across the country, hundreds of voter suppression laws are being passed. They're rigging the system, not in secret, but in real time. And if they succeed, Trump will believe he can't lose. And that's when things get dangerous. Mary didn't just expose his disorders. She mapped out their consequences. When you give unchecked power to a man with untreated personality disorders, you don't get leadership, you get escalation. Rage becomes policy. Paranoia becomes law. Insecurity turns into cultural warfare. Trump doesn't govern. He retaliates. Every lawsuit, every joke, every headline that bruises his ego becomes a grudge match. A second term won't be a rerun. It'll be a purge. And this time, he knows the system. He's already planning to break it. With loyalty oaths, mass firings, and a Department of Justice that answers only to him. Mary's known him her entire life. She says he hasn't changed because he can't. If he gets power again, it won't be a mistake. It'll be a turning point, the moment the American experiment flatlined. But her most chilling insight? It's not about Trump. It's about his followers. She compares them to trauma survivors, clinging to him not because they love him, but because they fear what's next. Trump doesn't win people over with policy. He infects with fear. Fear of change. Fear of the other. Fear of being left behind. And once they're infected, they defend him like their life depends on it. That's not a base. It's a hostage crisis. Every time he screams about fake news or rigged elections, it's not noise, it's architecture. He's building a parallel universe where democracy is the villain and he's the last hope. Even worse, Trump has never truly faced consequences. Every lie, every scam, every assault, he's walked away from it, not because he's clever, but because the system lets him. From tax fraud to sexual assault, the list is endless. And so are the excuses. Too rich, too famous, too political. And every time we let it slide, the pathology deepens. Trump doesn't think he's above the law. He knows he is. Now, with indictments stacking up, he's not scared. He's strategizing. Every charge becomes fuel for his victim narrative. Proof that he's being hunted, not held accountable. This is how delusion becomes campaign strategy. Mary says Trump's greatest fear is exposure. Not to the media, but to the truth. That everything he projects is a lie. That he is none of the things he pretends to be. That IT started with Fred Trump, a man who built the myth of Donald. But even Donald doesn't fully believe the hype. That's why he speaks in endless hyperbole, to convince himself as much as he's trying to convince the rest of us. Mary says the best way to fight him isn't fear. It's mockery. Reveal his weaknesses. Break the illusion. Strip the costume. Because otherwise he'll keep getting away with it. Like he always has, and shockingly, he's more protected now than ever. His obsession with Melania's silence is part of the crumbling facade. He needs constant praise, and when she refuses to play the smiling First Lady, he spirals. Reports of explosive fights behind closed doors are triggered by something as simple as her not performing. Mary says Trump doesn't see Melania as a partner. He sees her as a prop. And when props malfunction, he lashes out. That's why public comments from celebrities cut deep. They expose what Trump fears most, that even she might be done pretending, that the final betrayal won't come from prosecutors, but from inside his own home. Mary's conclusion is blunt and brutal. Donald Trump doesn't want to lead. He wants to rule. He doesn't seek unity. He craves worship. And if democracy has to burn to keep that fantasy alive, so be it. This isn't about a flawed politician. This is a psychologically dangerous man who already practiced dictatorship once, and now knows how to do it better. Trump 2025 isn't the wild outsider of 2016. He's angrier, cornered, and obsessed with revenge. If he's handed the keys again, it won't be a presidency. It'll be a hostile takeover of laws, of institutions, of the country's very soul. And here's the kicker, he's already cheating. In the middle of the pandemic, he told voters it wasn't safe to vote by mail. He's declared any Biden when a fraud before it even happens. That's not rhetoric. That's rigging. But if Biden wins again, it all depends on the margin. If it's a landslide, Trump might spin it as America's loss, not his. He'll claim he was too good for us all along, off to build Trump Tower Moscow. But Mary Trump warns, the gravest mistake we can make is laughing too long. Behind the clown makeup, the chaos, and the memes is a man with a plan, not to save America, but to bend it around his ego. He's mastered the art of weaponized victimhood. He knows how to hijack patriotism. He's rebranded narcissism as strength. And if he wins again in 2025, it won't just be for more years. IT could be the end of the republic, as we know it behind the scenes. Mary Trump paints a chilling picture of a man unraveling. Since Dairo's viral takedown and the memes mocking Melania's vacant stares, Trump's paranoia has exploded. He's demanding loyalty odes again. He's raging over Jared and Ivanka's betrayal. And aides say he's pressuring staff to dig up dirt on enemies, Dairo, George Conway, even Melania's friends. This isn't a campaign. This is collapse. Mary knows the signs. The desperation. The need for control. The spiral into a world where every critic becomes a traitor and every loss is a plot. This isn't strategy. It's breakdown. A psychological crisis dressed up as politics. Mary says Trump has no moral compass, no empathy, no capacity for shame. He only serves one interest, himself. That's why he once bragged, Article 2 lets me do whatever I want. His first term, Mary calls it Show One, was the opening act of authoritarianism. Think of it like stage 1 cancer. January 6th pushed us to stage 2. But now, we're in stage 3, where laws are bent, ignored, or trampled outright. The administration refuses to spend congressionally approved funds. Constitutional norms? Shattered. Appointments? Illegitimate. And Mary warns, stage for his metastasis. It's when a leader stops pretending the law matters at all, when courts are defied, when democracy dies not with a bang but with silence. Because if no one enforces a law, and Trump believes the law can't touch him, then there is no rule of law left. Mary says we're on the brink. And unless something changes, America won't walk back from it as the world watches the GOP fall in line. Mary drops a brutal truth. This isn't just Trump's madness. It's the party's cowardice. Mitch McConnell stays mute. Lindsey Graham flip-flops weekly. Kevin McCarthy grovels. The entire GOP has become a stage for Trump's pathology, enabling, echoing, and amplifying his worst instincts. This isn't a movement anymore. It's a cult with nukes, and the terrifying part? The more unhinged Trump becomes, the more the party cheers. Because in MAGAland, rage is power, and Trump's rage is bottomless. Mary writes, what began as a toddler's defense mechanism, hostile indifference, aggressive defiance, calcified into cruelty. Now it's broadcast across America for the third election in a row. Just this week, Trump slammed Jewish voters, promised to revive his Muslim travel ban, and platformed a disgusting attack on Kamala Harris for not having biological children. This is a man with 34 felony counts, and he's still center stage. Mary asks, is this the moment we finally say enough? Or will America once again reward the cruelty? Mary also points to Trump's cognitive decline. The slurred rants, the jumbled facts, the imaginary crowds. This isn't just ego, it's deterioration. But the people closest to him protect the lie. Mary compares it to a family hiding grandpa's dementia while he's still holding the nuclear codes. The consequences aren't theoretical. They're real, and they're immediate. Because when a man with delusion controls a superpower, facts become prisoners too. Institutions bend. Alliances fracture. Truth is drowned in the noise. And every second Trump holds power, the damage deepens. But Mary ends with the coldest truth of all. Trump isn't the disease. He's the symptom. The symptom of a nation willing to trade democracy for drama, compassion for cruelty, truth for convenience. He was shaped by a family that punished love, but he rose in a country that rewarded hate. Mary says if America wants to stop him, voting won't be enough. We have to deprogram. We have to dismantle the myth before it becomes reality. Because if we don't, the next election won't be a choice. It'll be a surrender. And once Trump seizes power again, there may not be a second chance to take it back.